People often say a mother's greatest joy is watching her daughter grow, thrive, and one day fall in love. But no one tells you what to do when the man she falls for is your own husband. I was Kate, wife to a powerful man, Cyprian and mother to a bright young woman, Sophia, and proud of the life I'd built. Until the day I came home from a business trip and found pieces of my world missing. Not stolen, no, given away. Given to my own daughter, Sophia. This is the story of how love turned to betrayal, how a daughter crossed a line no one imagined, and how a mother learned that the deepest wounds aren't always visible. Hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, do well to subscribe and hit on notifications. To all my returning subscribers, thanks for stopping by. Let us begin. When I first married Cyprian, people called me lucky. He was everything a woman could want: tall, confident, charming, and disgustingly wealthy. The kind of man who walked into a room and made the world pause. We met in Toronto at a gala fundraiser. I was still picking up the pieces of my life after my divorce from Jason, raising Sophia mostly on my own. She was only 11 then, quiet but full of fire, like a secret waiting to be told. Years passed. Cyprian and I built a beautiful life together. Penthouse views, private getaways, polished dinners with people whose names rang across industries. He was generous with his money, less so with his time. But I didn't complain. That was the deal. A marriage of convenience laced with enough affection to feel real. Sophia didn't live with us. She was 22 now, studying fashion design in Montreal. We spoke often: video calls, texts, short weekend visits when our schedules allowed. She'd grown into a stunning young woman. Sharp cheekbones, smooth caramel skin, and a quiet elegance she never had as a child. She was my pride. My first love. My little girl, even if distance made her feel more like a pen pal than a daughter lately. It was in early spring, during one of my overseas business trips to London, that everything began to unravel. I was gone for 5 days working a marketing contract for a European beauty brand. Cyprian was supposed to be in Vancouver for a board meeting. Or so I thought. I found out later, far too late, that he'd rerouted to Montreal on a whim. He visited Sophia. She told me later that she was shocked to see him standing at her door, dressed in that custom-tailored charcoal suit, wearing the look of a man who never showed up anywhere uninvited. I was in the neighborhood, he supposedly said, as if Montreal wasn't 5 hours from Toronto. She let him in, of course. Why wouldn't she? He was my husband. Her stepfather. The man who paid part of her tuition and sent her a designer handbag every birthday. She made him tea. They talked. He told her she looked beautiful. That she had grown. That he regretted not getting to know her better. Then he said she looked just like me, only younger. That first night, he didn't go back to his hotel. And I didn't know a thing. I remember calling Sophia that same evening. She didn't pick up. Said later she was studying. Said her phone had died. I believed her because I wanted to. When I returned from London, Cyprian was home. Acting normal, distant as always, but no red flags. The only thing I noticed was a subtle shift in his gaze. He wasn't looking through me anymore. He was looking past me, as though his eyes were fixed on something newer, brighter. He started checking his phone more. Started humming in the shower. There was a lightness in him that hadn't been there in years. You seem happy, I told him one morning over coffee. He shrugged and smiled like it was a secret joke. I suppose I am. I should have pressed. I should have asked what changed, why he smelled like a new cologne, and why he'd started wearing silk shirts I hadn't bought. But I was tired. Tired of chasing shadows. Tired of being the wife who questions everything and always comes up short. The next weekend, Sophia came to visit. She hugged me tight, called me mama like she always did. But something in her energy had shifted. She was glowing, hair done, nails polished, dressed in a way that looked too expensive for a student budget. I noticed a new bracelet, gold and delicate. That's beautiful, I said. Gift, she answered with a shrug. She wouldn't say from whom. Cyprian barely looked at her that weekend. Barely spoke. But when I left them alone in the kitchen, I returned to find her laughing at something he'd whispered. A different kind of laugh, light and flirtatious. I felt something tighten in my chest, but I ignored it. They were just getting along. That's what I told myself. That's what I needed to believe. When Sophia left that Sunday, she hugged me again, then turned to Cyprian. He smiled. Just a smile. But the way she smiled back sent chills down my spine. It wasn't familial. It wasn't innocent. It was something else. Something dark. I spent the next few nights lying awake trying to shake the feeling. Something was wrong. But I didn't have proof. And so, I did what wives have done for centuries. I buried my instincts under the weight of trust and called it love. If only I had known what that visit had started, how those nights had rewritten the story of my life, I might have walked away then. But I stayed, believing in the version of reality that felt safest. Not knowing that just across the province, my husband was already rewriting his vows in the arms of my daughter. It's strange how silence can scream the loudest. In the weeks that followed Sophia's visit, our home grew quieter. Not peaceful quiet, the kind you welcome after a long day. This was the kind of silence that creeps into corners, hovers above dinner tables, and fills the spaces between words that used to mean something. Cyprian was distracted. I'd ask questions, and he'd nod without hearing me. Sometimes he'd leave the room while I was still talking. At first I blamed stress. He had a new investment firm opening in Calgary. Big clients, bigger pressure. But the signs were there. Signs I chose not to see. One evening, I reached for his phone to check the time. He snatched it back with such force I froze. "Don't touch my things," he snapped, then caught himself. "Sorry. Work stuff. Confidential." Confidential? I nodded like that made sense. Like I hadn't shared every inch of myself with him. Like I was some stranger borrowing time in his house. Meanwhile, Sophia had become harder to reach. She was polite as always but distant. Her texts were short, sometimes hours between replies. Her voice on the phone was lighter, happier, but detached, like she was somewhere far away, emotionally and physically. One day out of nowhere she sent me a photo. A new car. Sleek. Expensive.
Red leather interior.
"Who gave you this?" I asked. There was a pause before her reply came. "A friend." "What kind of friend?" "Someone who believes in me." I wanted to scream, to demand answers, but something inside me held back, afraid of what I might discover. Later that month I had a 2-day conference in Ottawa. Cyprian didn't offer to come along. He never did anymore. But something in his mood shifted again the moment I mentioned it. He started packing his suitcase before I even confirmed my flight. "Where are you going?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Business trip."
Vancouver.
Of course. When I returned 2 days later, his luggage was in the exact same spot. Unmoved. His toothbrush hadn't left the counter. He hadn't gone to Vancouver at all. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, looking at the untouched space, and my heart dropped. Sophia. I wanted to call her, to ask if he'd been with her. But how do you ask your daughter if she's sleeping with your husband? I did nothing. I waited. And 2 weeks later I got the confirmation I never wanted. Cyprian left his phone charging in the study. I never meant to look. But it buzzed twice, both messages from someone saved as S. I opened them. "Miss you already. Last night was perfect. You smell like me. I love it." There were more. So many more. Some graphic. Some romantic. All unmistakably intimate. And then photos. Of Sophia. In a robe. In his bed. In our bed. I remember sinking to the floor, phone still in my hand, mouth dry with shock. The betrayal wrapped around me like a cold wind, stealing the breath from my lungs. I wanted to scream, to tear the house apart. But I just sat there frozen. Later that night I confronted him. He didn't deny it. Not really. "She makes me feel alive," he said. I stared at him, trembling. "She's my daughter." He met my eyes, and what I saw there made my skin crawl. He didn't feel shame. He felt justified. "You were always too busy," he added. "With work. With the world. Sophia listens. She's present. She sees me." I slapped him. Hard. My hand stung. But not as much as my heart did. That night I called Sophia. She answered on the second ring. Mom, she said, sounding surprised. You and Cyprian. I couldn't finish. There was a pause. Then she said, without an ounce of remorse, we love each other. He's your stepfather, I hissed. He was your husband, she replied. Not mine. The line went dead. I didn't sleep that night. The house, the walls, everything felt poisoned. I sat on the kitchen floor, drinking wine from the bottle, trying to make sense of a world that no longer made sense. Over the next few weeks, things fell apart. Cyprian moved out. Sophia stopped answering my calls altogether. My name became taboo in my own story. He kept his promise to her, gifts, trips, everything. She posted pictures online, posing in luxury hotels, wearing jewelry I never owned. The world, of course, had no idea. To them, I was still the lucky wife of Cyprian Moreau. But inside, I was crumbling. And they, my husband and my daughter, were building something new, on the ruins of my trust. Looking back, I see now that their affair wasn't just lust, it was a transaction. He offered her the world. All she had to do was open the door. And once she did, she never looked back. Sophia had a taste of power, of wealth, of being the center of someone's universe. And she chose it over blood, over me. And worst of all, she didn't seem sorry. Not even a little. Some betrayals hit like a storm, loud, sudden, unforgiving. Others creep in like fog, soft and slow, until you can no longer see what's in front of you. The betrayal between Sophia and me was both. After the confrontation, Cyprian moved into a luxury condo in downtown Toronto. I assumed at first that it was a temporary separation, that reality would catch up with him, that Sophia, with her youth and impulse, would come to her senses. But I underestimated just how far gone they both were. 3 weeks after he left, a courier dropped a letter at my door. It was from Cyprian. Not a handwritten apology or a plea to work things out. No, it was divorce papers. I sat at the dining table staring at them for hours. I don't remember crying, just staring, numb. When I finally worked up the nerve to call Sophia, she didn't pick up. Not the first time. Not the fifth. I sent her a message. Please talk to me. This doesn't have to end like this. She replied with a single sentence. I've made my choice. Please respect it. I should have stopped there. I should have let her go. But the mother in me wouldn't quit. I drove to Montreal without telling her. I waited near her apartment. And when she finally emerged, stepping out of the building in heels, in his arms, glowing like a woman in love, I felt something in me finally die. They didn't see me. Or maybe they did and didn't care. He kissed her. Openly. Boldly. Like she hadn't once been my daughter, and he my husband. The media caught on eventually. Whispers of a mysterious young woman at Cyprian's side surfaced in society columns. He didn't hide it. She began attending events with him, arm in arm, like she belonged there. Like she hadn't clawed her way into a life that wasn't hers. And then came the announcement. They were engaged. I found out the same way the rest of the world did, through a glossy magazine spread. There they were, on a yacht in the Mediterranean. She wore white. He wore smug satisfaction. The headline read, Canada's power couple, billionaire tycoon and his blushing bride-to-be. I remember dropping the magazine and stepping outside just to breathe. The air felt too thick, the sky too bright. Everything around me kept moving while I stood still, shattered. Friends called in disbelief. Some offered pity. Most didn't know what to say. How could she do this to you? They asked. I had no answer. Was it envy? Rebellion? Or did she really believe he loved her? They married 6 months later. It was a private ceremony at a villa in Italy. I wasn't invited. Of course not. My name was scrubbed from every part of their lives. I was a ghost. A footnote in their fairy tale. But ghosts remember. I watched the wedding video when it leaked online. Sophia walked down the aisle in a custom-made gown, lace spilling over her shoulders, a soft smile on her lips. Cyprian stood waiting, pride gleaming in his eyes. As she took his hand, I felt the full weight of everything I'd lost. Not just a husband, but a daughter. My own flesh and blood. She had chosen him. Over me. over history, over decency. I grieved her like death, but it was worse than death because she had chosen this. She was alive and had still left me behind. Months passed. I tried therapy, yoga, wine, long walks in the park. Nothing worked. Nothing filled the hole they left. The only thing that dulled the pain was time and distance. Eventually I moved, sold the house, closed the chapter. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. I didn't know anyone anything anymore. Then one quiet autumn morning a letter arrived. Handwritten. No return address. It was from Sophia. Mom, I know you may never forgive me, and I won't blame you if you don't. But I wanted to write anyway. You were a good mother. The best. I hope you believe that. What we did was selfish. I know that now. At first it felt like love. Real love. But now, I'm not sure anymore. Sometimes I look at him and wonder what spell I was under. Maybe it was power, or the way he made me feel seen. But I miss you. I miss us. And I'm sorry. Truly. Love, Sophia. I folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. I didn't reply. I couldn't. Her apology came too late. After the ceremony. After the world had clapped for her betrayal. Regret doesn't undo damage. And love doesn't justify betrayal. She chose him. And she would have to live with that choice just as I lived with mine to let her go. They're still married last I heard. Cyprian's business is thriving. Sophia has a fashion line now, backed by his money and influence. I see her face in magazines sometimes and I wonder if she sleeps well. If she wakes in the middle of the night, hearing my voice. If she ever dreams of the life she destroyed. As for me, I've learned to breathe again. Alone, yes, but free. Because betrayal may break you, but survival rebuilds you. And while I lost a husband and a daughter, I found something else in the ruins. Myself. Have you ever imagined yourself in this kind of situation? What did you do about it? Subscribe to this channel and hit on notifications for more interesting stories like this.